Alright guys, so decided that we're going to do some Warhammer 40k lore videos, which I do have Nick here.
Waza!
He has not obviously listened to as many like Warhammer podcasts and things like I have over the last couple of months. So really it's not so much that he's doing what I'm doing where he's just going to start like outlining things, but at the same time what he's going to be doing is as I'm talking about different portions of the lore. Hold on, we're getting a weird echo. I'm not sure why.
Oh, hang on. Let me readjust my volume. Go ahead and talk.
Okay. Yeah, it's gone. Okay, oh wait, there it goes again. It was like quieter, but it's there.
Sorry. This is a really good mic.
That's good.
That should be good.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. So at this point though, it's more like I'm going to be talking about the things that I know about the lore, and then Nick is going to be asking me questions based upon if there's certain things that I didn't cover that I probably should have, because I was trying to get the perspective of somebody who doesn't know much of the lore. So then that way, as I'm trying to learn everybody else the lore, I'm not just glossing over things for no reason.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I will be using my big burly brain power to ask the right questions at the right times, helping you guys figure out the lore that I don't even know about.
So you heard it here first that Nick is going to be learning you things that he hasn't even learned himself.
But how's that any different from the usual?
This is fair. So, since it's the first episode of this, the topic is going to be the warp, which is basically it's a place, an energy source, and an afterlife in the Warhammer 40k universe. It's kind of it's essentially like an empty void, or at least that's how it starts, as an empty void that's been there since the beginning of time. It's kind of like a parallel universe to our own. So, really, like, you got the material, which is known as the materium, because they like their ums and things like that in 40k, but it's because it's supposed to be based off of like a proto-Latin. So they have the materium and the immaterium. So one is the material and one is the non-material. Um, and yeah, the warp is really where most of the psychic power comes from and things like that.
So it's like a place of pure energy?
Yeah, kind of. It's basically like all of the gods and everything live in the immaterium, and everything else is in the materium. So like humanity's in the materium, the Eldar are in the materium, the Tyranids are in the materium. Like all of the major races live in the materium. However, there are like certain in betweens between the materium and the immaterium, and like the Chaos Space Marines and stuff at this point in time in 40k are currently in the immaterium with the demons and the gods and all that stuff.
A bunch of goddamn demons.
Bunch of goddamn demons.
And little known fact for you new viewers, your announcer here lives there in the void. That's right.
Why are you revealing
Stay
our
out of
secrets,
my...
Nick?
Because somebody has to.
I thought that was Tim's job.
Tim doesn't know what he's doing anymore. I reveal the big secrets now.
So yeah, obviously, like, if you think of the warp as like the way that I've heard it put before, and this has actually been memed on a lot, is they always say it's like an ocean. But really, I kind of like to think of it more like a body. It's a smaller body of water, like a pond. In the sense that it's kind of flat and tranquil from the beginning, and the only time that it actually does move is when a force acts upon it, such as souls. So, like, every living thing in the materium has a connection to the warp through their soul. And so, whenever you do something, say, like aggression, every major emotion you feel creates a small ripple in the warp, and sometimes those will conflict with each other and create large rifts in the warp and that kind of thing. So it starts out as a very like tranquil, stagnant place, and slowly but surely kind of becomes more and more turbulent as time goes on.
Finally. I can officially say my rage is like a vast ocean.
Yes. Except for it's a vast ocean that covers the expanse of the entire universe.
Yes.
Uh,
That is my range.
so really, like, what lives in the warp is at first really not much. There is what's known as the enslavers. I'm not sure really if they're in the canon anymore because they were kind of eventually taken out for a while and then brought back in. But yeah, like there was a whole thing with basically the enslavers spilling out of the warp at one point. But this is take this with a grain of salt, I guess, is what I'm saying, because there is the chance that these don't necessarily exist in the current lore, but they were a thing. So there was the
Did they ever
enslavers.
get shoved back in?
Yes,
Good.
but pretty much when it comes to what lives in the warp current day in 40k, so in the 41st millennium, you have mostly it's the chaos gods, which are there's four major ones, and then there's the demons that live under them. And so the demons are arranged from other minor creatures created by the same energy as the chaos gods, and or there is a path to demonhood through essentially
So the
being
demons are basically created through void, or is chaos a different energy?
so chaos is essentially an energy created by living creatures. The warp exists on its own. However, it can be channeled by people, but people's emotions and that chaos energy that comes from people's emotions affects the warp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
So they come from like the waves.
yeah, kind of. So they're what creates the wave. Like, so if you think about like a person, right? So the first ever murder from humanity, right? That sends ripples
Yeah.
through the warp because basically as that person was in their level of
The
anger.
first demon.
Yeah, and actually this is the case. If you look at the medieval human era, that is actually what creates one of the chaos gods, is all of the conflict and war going on throughout the medieval era of humanity.
I'm sorry. All I can think of is just the chaos god rising from the warp and being like, "Totally tubular, dude."
uh so basically actually this chaos god looks the most like what is regularly depicted as like the devil and or the usual depiction of demons in religious text and that sort of thing. He's
Some good
obviously
old fashioned Satan.
he's it's super super weird that you said it that way, not because it's not funny, it is, but it's also the fact that there is creatures called Satan in, in 40k. So like for a split second I was
Oh,
like, wait, has he been like hiding all the like has he been like listening to shit too?
no, I still know absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it occurred to me after you said it that you were just mispronouncing Satan.
I love it when my hilarious antics somehow end up doing something.
Yeah, it just like caught me by surprise there for a second. But yeah, so he's
I do that a
basically
lot.
a large creature. I don't think they give an exact like height, which I believe he can change his height, obviously, as he's a god. But he is a large, like red-skinned creature, humanoid in shape, like large arms, like with claws at the end. And he has giant ass horns. He's got like 4 or 5 sets of horns that come off the back of his head. Basically,
He is extremely horny.
yes, all the time. Except for it's more of a murder boner that he has rather than like a usual sensual one, because that's a different Chaos God's,
Murder
specialty.
boners can be sensual.
This is true. Um, but yeah, like this god is Khorne, spelled Khorne. So it's his name is Khorne, and he was born of humanity's constant war and infighting during the medieval era. And he is the god of bloodlust and war.
And corn.
Uh,
No, not corn.
like the band or the fruit?
Corn is a fruit.
Trolling is
What?
a art.
All right, back on topic.
So yeah, so that's the first chaos god that, like, he's not the very first of them, but he was the first one that comes to mind because of the topic we were discussing. If we're going in chronological order from when they were formed, the first would be Nurgle. Nurgle is the god of death and decay, so as long as there has been life, there has been death, and as of the first, handful of deaths, there was Nurgle. So Nurgle has existed as long as life has. So, yeah, his whole thing is basically he breeds disease. Actually, he sees everything as his children, despite the fact that he is the god of death. So his whole thing is everything comes to me eventually. So he sees them all as his children.
It's kind of wholesome.
Yeah, and
In
those.
a disturbing way.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because like those that cling to life, he sees them as like just being misguided.
Oh. He's building a spooky, scary skeleton army, isn't he?
Spooky, scary skeleton family. Nurgle, when you're here, you're family. but
Oh no! That I just imagined a wave of the warp, but it's all skeletons. Yeah, that's disturbing.
but oh yeah, it goes back again.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That better?
Let's see. Yeah, it seems like it. Okay. So yeah, we've got Nurgle, and we have Khorne, and Nurgle is obviously a very large, like almost bulbous-looking creature. He's obviously got like a green hue to his skin, as he's covered in pustules and decay, and he has tentacles around him. He has what he calls it's Nurgle's Garden, which is basically a place where it's just nothing but decay and death and that sort of thing and rot. He's also commonly known as the Rot Father.
You come to me on the day of my rotting.
Just digging you up. You come to me on the day of my rotting.
I just imagine him like a Don father or a Godfather.
Kind of. I mean, like in a literal sense, yes. So yeah, you have Nurgle was first, and then I believe second, if not at the same time, was Malice, because Malice is the god of just sheer chaos. And so Malice is literally just a god of absolute chaos. So like, if you want to go to like a comparison, think Elder Scrolls Sheogorath. That is Malice. He just nothing but chaos, and everything about him is just doesn't make sense. Nothing about him makes any sense.
Cheese for everyone.
Wait, actually, cheese for no one. But
maybe a little cheese.
But yeah, so there's Malice, which he's actually one of the he's not as well known as the others. So there's not as much about him. However, then you have
but he's like a dragon man.
A dragon man. I mean, to be fair, this is out of your imagination, but I imagine that things randomly thrown out of imagination probably fit his description, I would think.
Yeah.
I
mean, my mind is probably about as chaotic.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, probably. But, and actually, like, his method of worship is literally just doing random things for the sake of doing random things.
Oh god, I've been worshipping that man my whole life.
This is literally our channel. And then, so, yeah, you have Nurgle, Malice, and then probably Khorne. And then after Khorne, you would have
Put butter on him.
You have Slann, or wait, no, you'd have Chinch. So, or Zinch it really depends on who you listen to, but it's either Chinch or Zinch. It's spelled with a T at the beginning with an apostrophe, and then Zeench, I believe is what it was. I'm not looking at it right now, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, so like
I'm just waiting on the world to change.
So yeah, and that's literally Chinch is the chaos god of change and or like schemes and plans.
Why am I so good at these things? It's so on the nose.
Well, Nick, you live in the warp, don't you?
Yeah, but I don't pay attention to my neighbors.
Let's say, are they not your neighbors?
They're bricks, okay? Is that what you want to hear?
Are you
They're up all
saying
night. They're really loud.
are you saying that you take a dump on their lawn? Is that
Yes.
But so Chinch or Zinch, whichever you prefer, is the god of change, schemes, and like almost like conspiracy. So anything that whenever you have like a general planning against somebody else, or any person planning to overthrow their own government, anything around that sort of thing gives Chinch power. Um
He knows too much. I have to kill him.
Not
Oh, wait,
today.
that just helps him.
But so with Zinch, the whole thing there is that like his plane is essentially a giant puzzle, and everything about it is just a large maze. And I believe there's only, I think, two living mortals that have ever been there and gotten out of it. I don't remember the exact like who they were, because I will do that in a later episode probably, because I'm going to do an episode on each of these gods eventually. Um, so I'll research that for that. But yeah, so that's Chinch, and then you have Slanesh, which is the most recent of the Chaos Gods, which was born out of the Eldar's hedonism. Basically, they were all, doing everything for the sake of pleasure, because they had no struggle left really with their level of technology. And over the course of thousands and thousands of years, they had been doing so many horrible things that are like, it was just a bunch of debauchery and a bunch of orgies in the streets, and murder of each other's children and that sort of thing. Like everything that they could do that could possibly be a sick pleasure is something they were doing. And they did this over the course of thousands of years, which roughly an Eldar feels emotions about 5 times stronger than a human does, as well as their level in the warp is about that as well. So the way it's generally put in the lore is a human in the warp, their psychic power is representative of a candle, where an Eldar's psychic power is representative of a bonfire. So they have a much larger effect on the warp than humanity does for the most part. So over the course of thousands upon thousands of years, they had done so many horrible things like that that it actually birthed a god into existence. And this god is the god of perfection, hedonism, anything in excess. So like, perfectionism is one. So anything that you're doing where you're going to overdo it, addiction is a big thing for Slanesh. So really, anything to do with doing anything in excess is Slanesh.
This guy sounds awful lot like a fucking um demon lord that I killed one time.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like I didn't think about it that way. I guess not that I forgot, but what Nick is
Yeah,
referencing is
fuck that
we were
guy.
playing D&D one time, and there was a demon prince that kept coming into our campaign and making us do things just because he wanted to. And I I don't actually know if he's official lore, but he's Demon Lord
He is
Grast.
official lore.
Okay, yeah. So he shows up, and he had been making us do stuff for quite a while, and it was probably over the course of a year-long campaign. And he had been doing this, following us around, making us do things. And when one of us would die, sometimes he would revive one of us. But then, obviously there was some kind of huge price for it. Um, and it was a lot of things like that just over the course of a year. And then finally, by the end of the campaign, we ended up having to kill him because, obviously we couldn't do that forever. And he had burned down the starting town we were in that we had kept as kind of a home, and messed
And
with.
then was planning on burning the rest of the world to the ground.
Yeah, he was
Like a prick.
he was basically going to pull the entire material plane into his plane of existence and then destroy it.
And now I'm 2 for 2 against beating that guy's ass. I'll
Yeah.
fucking do it again if I have to.
So yeah, that was a thing that happened. Um, but yeah, so from there, um, you have kind of the physical aspect of the warp, which is, um, essentially throughout like the beginning of human space travel, humanity went out during there was the Age of Expansion, where humanity went out and started slowly but surely conquering the galaxy. And during this time period, humanity was actually like fairly advanced, fairly capable of, going through and taking these planets with little to no effort. And humanity was, going through and establishing colony after colony and established quite a bit of a foothold in the galaxy at this point. Now, shortly after that, there was the Dark Age of Technology, which that name is a bit deceptive. The Dark Age of Technology, there was a lot of technology that came out of it, which is really good for humanity. But it is at the end of that age, there was one piece of technology that was pretty horrible that almost wiped out humanity as well as everybody else. So there was at the end, the Men of Iron, which was a form of AI, which eventually, obviously, as they always do, went rogue and started trying to not only kill humanity, but every other species. So eventually, humanity had to put down their own AI and put bans on that in the future.
Is gone rogue.
Yes. Rogues. It was back when we were playing The Division forever ago. Somebody would go rogue, and we would run through the streets going, rogues, like we were dogs barking, chasing them down in game chat. But yeah, so it was this big thing. Humanity manages to put it down eventually. After that, there was a ban on AI technology. A lot of technology was then limited after that. At which point there was the Age of Strife. And during the Age of Strife, right after this large-scale conflict, as well as all the stuff going on with the Eldar, there was a lot of big, there was a lot of, things going on in the warp. There was a lot of, turbulence, I guess, in the warp that eventually caused what we call warp storms, which imagine as humanity has had these pathways to get from planet to planet for generations now. And suddenly a warp storm, which imagine just a permanent affixed hurricane in the warp on top of your highway that is from one planet to another, suddenly forms and never goes away. And some of them last days, and some of them last centuries, and some of them have lasted millennia. So these are giant storms that basically, if a person goes into it with a ship, it can quite possibly rip your ship apart. It sometimes just pulls you into the warp and you never get out. Sometimes it'll pull you into the warp and you end up on the opposite side of the galaxy, have no idea where you are. Sometimes you will go back in time, sometimes forward in time, so it's just absolutely nasty. So these warp storms just form all over the galaxy, stopping humanity's travel, which cuts off a lot of their worlds. So this was a big problem for humanity. I don't know if there's anything I've glossed over so far here.
I don't think so. You've
Okay.
been pretty thorough so far.
Okay, so yeah, with these warp storms came a whole new list of challenges for humanity. Uh, Obviously, this caused a lot of planets to plunge into chaos, and some of them died out because a lot of these planets were what we call hive worlds, where basically it was, imagine New York City, but that city copy pasted over the entire planet with multiple levels going all the way down to the core of the planet. Which
Core.
Which, if you've ever played anything to do with Necromunda, it takes place in a hive city. But yeah, so the hive city planets were getting absolutely destroyed because they had no trade with other planets and they didn't have any agriculture on those planets, so they had no food. So most of those planets started starving to death. A lot of them, ended up turning into the people with the biggest guns were the survivors because they would just steal everything from everybody else, and everything kind of plunged into chaos. And this went on for quite some time. And there was the reunification wars. Humanity basically on Earth, on Terra, which they now call it Holy Terra. There was then the Emperor of Man. He came through. The whole world was essentially just a picture of Mad Max, and that was Earth. So at that point, basically the Emperor reunified humanity through war, which I can probably explain in a later episode as well. So yeah, the Emperor reunifies humanity, and then eventually starts interplanetary travel again through use of what's called a Geller field. So basically, a Geller field is when inside of a ship they have a certain, I forget what it's called, but basically it's I guess it'd probably be a Geller field generator, which creates a bubble of reality around the ship that then they can travel through the warp at faster than light speeds, and so they can move faster than light through the warp, and that bubble of reality protects them from such things as warp storms, as not entirely, but it protects them from that sort of thing happening to them while they're traveling through the warp. Because prior to that, they had to travel through essentially like a space lane. They had to travel, through linear space. They couldn't just cut. It's imagine like if space was a ball of yarn, cutting through the middle of the ball of yarn and out the other side. That's what they're doing, but through the warp.
Oh. Is that damaging to the warp?
It's not damaging to the warp, but if you don't have a Geller field, it'll either rip your ship apart. There was some cases of the entire crew aging to death instantly. There was other cases of them arriving before they left. There was other cases of times where, the entire ship would just go missing. Sometimes the ship would just be ripped apart as soon as they tried to go into the warp. So there was just so many horrible hazards that could take place that it was not safe to do this up until the discovery of the Navigator gene and Geller fields, which the Navigator gene was, there were humans that were born with a third eye, which that eye can see into the warp. So they can actually look into the warp and determine whether or not it's safe and what the safest path is, and then the Geller field allows them to go into the warp without ripping their ship apart on entry.
Ooh.
So yeah, they do that, and that was kind of the beginning of space travel again for humanity. Now
Snap back to humanity.
I just didn't expect that one.
You never expect the Inquisition.
Oh man, I just listened to an episode on the Inquisition and they made that joke like 5 or 6 times.
This is Spanish Inquisition. This is the Inquisition. It's way cooler because it has my name in it.
So yeah, you have that's basically your, the warp, a place, energy source, afterlife, warp. So as an afterlife, each chaos god has their own plane. As I mentioned Zinch, I mentioned that it's like a giant maze. For Nurgle, it's living in Nurgle's garden, but as as a demon. For
How do they get turned into demons?
So that's actually a whole nother process. So as a human, if you have devoted your life to chaos and have gone ahead and served this god very well throughout your life, so say you're trying to serve Khorne, you've done nothing but battle your entire life and nothing but violence and bloodshed your entire life, then there is the possibility that Khorne takes notice of you and will establish his mark upon your soul, essentially, which will in some cases cause small mutations, such as horns or wings or things like that, like a spined tail, that kind of thing. Now, there are mutations independent of that, but there are some mutations that come from the warp, such as that. So Khorne might give you claws, or might give something along those lines to make you more efficient in combat. And that's the first step. And eventually, you'll slowly but surely get to a point where your soul is so corrupted by Khorne that when you die, it's actually not even when you die, like you'll basically ascend to demonhood. And then when your body dies, then your soul goes to Khorne's plane of existence.
So it's basically fucked up Valhalla.
Kind of, yeah. And in Khorne's case, like, really, those demons are probably some of the rowdiest in the sense that, like, they tend to fight each other a lot. But that's also because of Khorne's belief system is
What's wrong? Someone stole your sweet roll, and then 5,000 years of combat.
Yes, and the main like idea of Khorne is the blood god does not care from where the blood flows, only that it does. So like Khorne doesn't take sides in fights. Khorne is very like, I don't care as long as people are killing each other.
But my lord, he stole my sweet roll. I don't care. Just beat each other to death.
One of you stab the other one. God damn it, me damn it. And
yes.
So yeah, there's that. There's Nurgle's Garden, which is very Obviously, just a land of pestilence and very like obviously new diseases being formed there all the time and that sort of thing. Zinch, I mentioned the like giant maze, and there's multiple layers to that maze. As for Slanesh, there are multiple layers. Again, this was something I was intending on doing for another video, so I don't remember exactly how many, and I don't have the notes in front of me. But I know there are multiple layers. Basically, each is almost like representative, similar to like seven deadly sins, but there are more than seven, I believe. But yeah, so they're kind of different forms of like things that would make a person happy and want to stay there, because Slanesh gains power from all of your excess. So anything you do in excess is giving Slanesh more power. So Slanesh
So
is
which one's the guy that'd be crazy?
that's Malice.
Malice?
Yeah.
Okay. So Malice is my boy.
Yeah, Malice is all about chaos and just all about just, sheer just crazy shit for the sake of crazy shit. But yeah, so each of these gods they have their own thing. Malice being that he is known as one of the lesser ones, like he's not one of the four well known. He is the strongest of the lesser gods, but he is also not as well known as the others. I don't actually know much about his, and I've never heard it explained. However, I can
Well, at
imagine.
least gets me interested in doing some research on my own.
I can also imagine cheese raining from the sky.
Cheese for everyone!
But yeah, so you have your basic, the materium. You have your immaterium, and they interact with each other, but they're two separate places. In a lot of times, like so, there's the webway, which is a kind of a place where they meet, which was created by a species known as the Old Ones. And it's basically a gate that allows for a living creature to step in, and it's almost like a tunnel between the warp and the materium. So you have this tunnel that is like a place where it's kind of neither place can touch you. So like the Eldar use this because they were the ones who inherited it, but the old ones used to use this a lot as well, and it's a place that basically most species can't go unless they're incredibly psychic attuned. So you need very high psychic capability to use these, as well as like you go into one of these webway gates, and there are entire cities built inside of these in some cases in the Eldar. So the Eldar have entire cities built inside the webway, which basically means that like most Materium species can't follow them there, and most Immaterium species can't get there to kill them.
Huh.
So yeah, it's kind of an interesting little like they have a place to kind of go where if like they were to ever just be pushed to absolutely the edges of the galaxy, they could just go hide in the webway for a while and hope it blows over.
The webway.
But yeah, so that's pretty much the majority of what the warp is. So that'll probably be like the end of this episode. The next one will probably be on the War in Heaven, which is basically just the beginning of everything. It's kind of the origin of the most of the species and all of that kind of stuff.
Heaven. Almost heaven.
War.
War never changes.
Almost war zone. West Virginia. I'm probably gonna
Exploding mountains.
I'm probably gonna have to edit that out now.
Oh, for sure.
Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you guys liked what we put out here, let us know. And if you didn't like it, you can go ahead and dislike it. And that's pretty much it for us, right, Nick? Like, you got anything?
Nah, stay shenanigans, my friends.
Stay shenanigans indeed, and or haberdashery.
No, we don't do haberdashery here. That's evil shenanigans.
Oh, sorry. Still do haberdashery.
Encouraging my people to do evil.
Our people. Alright, guys. We'll talk to you guys in the next video. Everybody, I hope it's going good for you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Have a good 2021.